Every cybersecurity career video tells you the same thing. Learn to hack, build a home lab, become a SOC analyst. And if that's not you, if you don't want to stare at alerts all day or learn to write code, they've got nothing for you. Nobody talks about the other side of cybersecurity, the side where your ability to write clearly, think critically, and understand how a business actually runs is worth more than any technical skill. I'm talking about GRC, governance, risk, and compliance. And by the end of this video, you'll have a complete blueprint to go from zero experience to landing a GRC analyst role in 6 to 9 months. No coding, no hacking, no wasting thousands on certifications that you don't need. I'm a CISO. I've built compliance programs from scratch. I achieved ISO 27001 certification for my company in 8 months. And I'm about to hand you the exact roadmap I would follow if I was starting again today. So, what is GRC and why would you care about it? So, let me break it down without the corporate jargon. Governance essentially is the rules, it's the policies, the standards, the guidelines that tell everyone in a company how they're supposed to handle security. Think of it as writing the rule book. Risk is figuring out what could go wrong and how bad it could be. Every company has risks, cyber attacks, data breaches, even system failures. Someone needs to identify those risks, measure them, and figure out what to do about them. That someone could be you. Compliance is proving you follow the rules. Think about GDPR, ISO 27001, SOC 2, or PCI DSS. These are all frameworks and regulations that companies have to follow. Someone needs to make sure they actually do. And when an auditor knocks on the door, someone needs to have evidence ready. Here's the thing most people don't realize. GRC is not a niche corner of cybersecurity. It's the backbone. Every company that handles data needs GRC. Every company that wants to win enterprise clients needs GRC. Every company that doesn't want to get fined millions under GDPR needs a GRC. And here's what makes it perfect career for changers. The skills you've already got from whatever career you are in right now are exactly what GRC needs. So, why GRC is the secret weapon for career changers? Yeah, let me tell you about why GRC is the most underrated entry point into cybersecurity and why your non-technical background is actually your biggest advantage. Every day, I see people trying to force themselves into SOC analyst roles because that's what YouTube told them to do. They hate staring at logs, they don't enjoy scripting, and they are struggling with the technical depth. And they think cybersecurity isn't for them. Actually, it is for them. They're just looking at the wrong door. Here's what GRC analysts actually does day to day. They write and update security policies. If you can write clearly and structure a document, you can do this. Runs risk assessments, identifying what could go wrong, how likely it is, and what will be the business impact. This is critical thinking. That's not coding. They manage compliance evidence, collecting proof that company follows its own rules and meets regulatory standards. Organization and attention to detail. Handles vendor risk questionnaires, reviewing third-party suppliers to check their security, reading, analyzing, and asking smart questions. Runs security awareness training, teaching employees how to spot phishing, handle data, follow policy, communication and training skills. And then prepares audit documentation, getting evidence packs ready for external auditors. Organization, documentation, and project management. Now, tell me, which of these requires you to write Python scripts or reverse engineer malware? None. Exactly correct. Let me show you what your previous career already gave you. Have you been in teaching or training background? Security awareness, policy communication, and compliance training. You are already ahead. Finance or accounting? Well, you understand audit processes, regulatory requirements, and documentation standards. That's GRC in a different wrapper. Have you been in the healthcare? You've dealt with patient data, compliance requirements, and strict procedures. HIPAA experience translates directly. Legal or HR? Policy writing, regulatory awareness, risk assessment, data protection. That's 80% of the GRC role. Have you been in project management? Framework implementation is a project. You've run projects, you understand timelines, stakeholders, and documentation. Have you been in military or police? Process discipline, documentation, risk assessment, compliance with strict standards. That's a direct transfer. The biggest mistake career changers make is thinking they need to start from zero. You don't. You're starting from your existing skills and adding cybersecurity knowledge on top. That's completely different position. Now, let's talk about money, because I know that's what you're thinking. Junior GRC analyst roles in the UK, they start anywhere from 35 to 45k. That's more than the help desk or first IT support roles. Within 2 to 3 years, you're looking at 45 to 60k as a GRC analyst or risk analyst. Senior GRC analyst, compliance manager or risk manager, they're looking at 60 to 85. And then head of compliance, head of GRC or GRC director go even 85 to 120k plus. And here's something most people do not realize. Many CISOs come from GRC backgrounds because they understand business risk, regulatory pressure, and how to talk to the board. Technical route to CISO takes 15 to 20 years. The GRC role, maybe 10 to 12 if you're good. Career path is clear. GRC analyst, senior analyst, GRC manager, head of compliance, and then CISO if that's your ambition. Now, let's build the roadmap to get you there. Phase 1 is all about understanding the landscape. You need enough security knowledge to speak the language confidently, and enough GRC context to understand where you're heading. This is not about memorizing textbook. It's about building the understanding. The core concepts that you need to learn are: you need to understand the fundamentals of cybersecurity, not at engineer level, at intelligent conversation level. And here's what you need to grasp. The CIA triad is confidentiality, integrity, and availability. 3 words that underpin everything in security. Every policy, every risk assessment, every control becomes back to protecting one of these 3 things. Common threats and attacks. Think about phishing, ransomware, social engineering, and insider threats. You don't need to know how to execute them. You need to know they exist and what damage they could cause. Security controls, what companies put in place to protect themselves. Firewalls, encryption, access management, backups. Understand what they do, not how to configure them. Next one, risk management basics. How organizations identify, assess, and treat risks. This is a core work of GRC. Data protection and privacy. GDPR in particular. If you are in UK or EU based, what personal data is, how must it be handled, what happens when it is breached. Best resource for this, Professor Messer's free Security Plus course on YouTube. But here's the key. You're not studying for exam just yet. You're watching the sections on threats, risk, and security concepts to build your vocabulary. Spend 2 to 3 weeks on this, an hour or 2 a day. Now, you need to understand what GRC actually looks like in the real world. This is where most guides fail. They tell you to get certified but never explain what you're certifying against. Here are the key frameworks and regulations you're going to encounter. ISO 27001 is the international standard for information security management. This is the big one. If a company says we are ISO 27001 certified, someone built that program, and that someone could be you. NIST Cybersecurity Framework. It's essentially a US framework that's used globally. 5 functions: identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. Brilliant structure for understanding how security programs work. SOC 2, compliance standards for service organization. If a SaaS company wants an enterprise customers, they almost certainly will need a SOC 2, massively growing demand. GDPR, the EU and UK data protection regulation, affects every company that handles personal data. Fines can be up to 4% of the global turnover. Companies are terrified of getting this wrong. And then lastly but not least, PCI DSS. If a company processes card payments, they need this, another compliance standard with clear requirements. You don't need to memorize every clause. You need to understand what each framework does, who needs it, and why it matters to the business. That's the difference between GRC professional and someone who just passed an exam. The resources for this phase are, as I mentioned, Professor Mess's Security Plus course on YouTube. NIST cybersecurity framework, it can be found on nist.gov. It's a free PDF. ISO 27001 overview. Search ISO 27001 explainer on YouTube. Several excellent breakdowns. GDPR summary. You can find that on ico.org.uk website. As plain English guides, read the basics. GRC Career, go on subreddit and follow GRC Career or r/cybersecurity. Search for GRC Career advice threads. And then last but not least again, Stuart Laidlow and the Simply Cyber on YouTube is a great GRC focused content creators. Follow them. I've said we were going to keep certifications to a minimum, and I meant it. But there is one certification you're definitely going to need, and it's CompTIA Security Plus. Here's why. Security Plus is the universal baseline. Whether you go technical or GRC, hiring managers recognize it. It proves you understand security fundamentals. And for GRC roles specifically, it shows you're not just a policy person, you actually understand what you're writing policies about. Current version is SYO 701, and it covers exactly what you need: threats, risk, management, security architecture, operations, and compliance. The last one, compliance, is literally your future career. Study method is, again, Professor Messer's Security Plus videos. Watch every video, take handwritten notes. This is your primary resource. Jason Dion's practice exams on Udemy. Wait for a sale. There are 12 to 15 pounds, up to $20. Take every practice test. Review what went wrong. Book your exam date early. Having a deadline stops you from studying forever. Give yourself 6 to 8 weeks of focused study. Study 1.5 to 2 hours daily. Remember, consistency beats marathon sessions. Morning study is better. You can manage it. The exam costs around £350 or $450. This is the one investment I'd say is non-negotiable. Everything else is a blueprint that can be done for free or close to it. When you pass, and you will, if you follow the method, you've got the credential that opens the first door. Now, this is the phase. The next phase is a deep dive. And this exact phase is going to make or break your application. Anyone can pass an exam. Not everyone can demonstrate they actually do the work. In a SOC world, people build home labs to practice. In a GRC world, you build a portfolio. You're going to create real documents, real frameworks, real assessments that provide your capability and prove that you can do it. Learn how to write security policies. Policy writing is the bread and butter of GRC, and most candidates have never written one. Here's what you're going to do. Pick a fictionary company. Let's say it's a fintech startup with 50 employees. Now write these policies for that company. Information security policy, the overarching policy that sets the tone for how security is handled in that organization. Acceptable use policy, rules for how employees can use company devices and systems. Access control policy, who gets access to what and how access is granted and removed. Incident response policy, what happens when something goes wrong? What does what, in what order? Data classification policy, how data is categorized and handled based on sensitivity. And last but not least, password and authentication policy. Standards for passwords, multi-factor authentication, and account security. Here's the tip. Search for SANS policy templates. They're free and give you professional structures to follow. Don't copy them word for word. Use them as templates and adapt them for your fictional company. That's what you do in real job. Put every policy in your GitHub repository or a personal portfolio site. When an interviewer asks, have you written security policies? You show them 6 professionally structured documents. Game over. Now, risk assessment is a core skill of GRC, and it's more straightforward than people make it sound. A risk assessment answers 3 important questions. What could go wrong? How likely is it? And how bad would it be? Again, create a risk register for your fictional company. Use a spreadsheet for each risk and document. Write risk description. So what's the threat? And be specific, not cyber attack, but ransomware attack encrypting customer database. The likelihood, how probable is this? Use the scale, low, medium, high, or 1 to 5. Impact, how bad it would be. Financial, reputational, operational, and legal. Risk rating, likelihood multiplied by impact. This prioritizes what to fix. The current controls, what's already in place to reduce this risk. And then the treatment plan, accept, mitigate, transfer, or avoid. What's the recommended action? Build a risk register with 15 to 20 risks. Cover technical risks, people risks, process risks, and third-party risks. This single document demonstrates you understand the core of GRC work. Now, map the framework. Here's an exercise that will genuinely impress at interview. Take the NIST cybersecurity framework and map it against your fictional company. For each of the 5 functions, identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. Document what controls company have, what gaps exist, and what recommendations you would make. This is called a gap analysis, and it's exactly what GRC professionals do when a company wants to achieve certification or improve its security posture. If you want to go further, do the same for ISO 27001 Annex A controls. There are 93 controls in the latest version. Create a spreadsheet showing each control, whether your fictional company meets it, what evidence exists, and what needs to be done. I achieved ISO 27001 for my company in 8 months. The person who helped me to do the gap analysis, map the controls, and collect the evidence, that was a GRC analyst. That's the job that you are training for. Build a business communication skills. One thing that separates great GRC professionals from average ones is the ability to explain security risk in a business language. Technical people say we have an unpatched CVE on our external facing web servers creating remote code execution vectors, while GRC professionals say our customer facing website has known security weaknesses that could allow attackers to access our systems. The potential impact is a data breach affecting 50,000 customer records. Estimated cost is £2 million, including GDPR fines. Same problem, but the second version makes the CEO sit up. That's your superpower. Practice this. Take any security vulnerability, write 1 paragraph executive summary in plain English. With business impact and a recommended action, do this 10 times and you'll be better at it than most people already working in the field. Now, the resources are, which I already mentioned some of them, is SANS policy templates from sans.org, NIST CSF framework, the free PDF again used for your gap analysis, ISO 27001 Annex A control list. Search for free summaries online. Risk register templates. Again, search for ISO 27001 risk register template for free examples to use as starting points. GDPR guides, again, ICO website. GitHub, that's free. Create a repository for your policy portfolio. This is your home lab equivalent. And Google Sheets or Excel for risk registers, framework mappings, and control matrices. All right, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Everyone asks, do I need an ISO 27001 certificate? Do I need CRISC? What about CISM? Here's my honest take. I would say this as someone with ISO 27001 lead implementer and CISM certifications. Your first GRC role, Security Plus, is enough if you build the portfolio I just described. But if you have additional budget, one additional GRC specific certification can accelerate things. Option 1 is ISO 27001 Foundation, approximately £500. This proves you understand the world's most recognized information security standard. It's a 2 to 3 day course. The foundation level is accessible and relevant. Lead implementer is the next step up, but save that after you're employed. Now, option number 2, which is similar, but you study the content and skipping the exam. So honestly, if the budget is tight, study ISO 27001 and NIST content for free online. Build your portfolio to prove you understand it and get certified after your employer pays for it. Many companies cover certification costs as a benefit. Don't let certification collecting delay your job search. Security Plus, a solid portfolio of policies, risk assessments, and framework mappings, genuinely enough to get interviews. I've hired people with less. Now, build a CV that gets you interviews. Same principle as every other role. Your CV needs to prove you can do the job, not that you are interested in, that you can actually do it. For GRC, this means your CV screams, I understand risk, I can write a policy, I know compliance frameworks, and I communicate in business language. The action plus proof formula for GRC is every bullet point on your CV follows this structure. What you did plus the result or skill it demonstrates. Bad example is I've studied ISO 27001. Now, a good example is I developed a comprehensive ISO 27001 gap analysis for a 50-person fintech organization, mapping 93 annex controls and identifying 12 critical gaps with remediation recommendations. You see the difference? Massive. Another bad example is I wrote security policies. That doesn't explain much. Now, the good example would be I authored 6 information security policies aligned to ISO 27001 and NIST CSF standards, covering access control, incident response, data classification, and acceptable use. Another bad example is I'm interested in risk management. Again, plain and boring. A good example would be I created and maintained a 20-item risk register with quantified business impact assessments, likelihood scoring, and documented treatment plans for a simulated business environment. Massive difference. Now, a CV structure for GRC changers would be number 1, professional summary, 3 lines, who are you, what you bring, what you're targeting, mention your transferable skills and security knowledge. Number 2, certifications. That's where you put your Security Plus at a minimum, ISO 27001, or anything else if you have. Place this high on the CV. Number 3 is GRC project and portfolio. This is your experience section, your policies, your risk registers, your gap analysis. Use the action plus proof formula linked to your GitHub or portfolio. Number 4, technical knowledge. Your ISO 27001, NIST CSF, SOC 2, GDPR, risk assessment, policy development, vendor risk management, audit preparation. Match job posting keywords here. Number 5, previous work experience. Reframe everything through GRC lens. Did you follow procedures? That's compliance. Did you manage risks? Risk management. Did you write documentation? That's a policy development. Did you train people? That's security awareness. And education. Whatever you have. No degree? No problem. The sections above do the heavy lifting. And remember, guys, keyword matching is critical. Most companies use automated systems that scan your CV before a human reads it. If the job says risk assessment, your CV should say risk assessment. If they say ISO 27001, your CV says ISO 27001. Use their exact language. Now, you've built a knowledge, you've passed Security Plus, you've got a portfolio that most candidates can't match. Now let's turn that into a job. What roles to target? Search for these job titles. Junior GRC Analyst, Information Security Analyst with GRC focus, Compliance Analyst, Risk Analyst, IT Audit Analyst, Third-Party Risk Analyst, Data Protection Analyst, and Security Governance Analyst. Don't look at cybersecurity companies. Every bank, every SaaS company, every fintech, every healthcare provider, every company with data needs GRC people. Some of the best GRC roles are at companies you would never associate with cybersecurity. Now, your LinkedIn headline should not say aspiring GRC analyst. That word aspiring undermines everything you have built. Instead, put something like this: GRC analyst / CompTIA Security Plus / ISO 27001. Risk assessment and compliance. Speak the professional you are becoming. Your featured section in your best policy document, your risk register, your gap analysis, visual proof of your work. Post 2 to 3 times a week. Share what you're learning about frameworks. Comment on data breach news with a GRC perspective. This is why vendor risk management matters. Engage with GRC professionals. This gets you on their radars. Now, after every application, find the hiring manager, the head of GRC, or the CISO on LinkedIn and send them this message. Hi, insert their name. I've just applied for a role and put in a role title. Position on your team. I'm transitioning into GRC from, and then put your background. I built a portfolio of security policies, risk assessments, and framework gap analysis aligned to ISO 27001 and NIST CSF. I know my background is non-traditional, but I believe the combination of my key and insert transferable skills, experience, and the practical GRC work I've produced demonstrates real capability. Add value 15 minutes to discuss how I could contribute. Either way, thank you for your time. Yes, half won't respond, but that's fine. But the ones who do, you're now a person to them, not a PDF. You're having a real conversation before formal process even starts. That's an enormous advantage. I've been on the receiving end of these messages. When someone shows initiative, references specific work they've done, and communicates professionally, they go to the top of the pile every single time. Now, let's put it all together, the complete timeline, costs, and things like that. So month 1 to 2 is the foundation. That's where you learn security fundamentals, risk concepts, compliance basics, and business writing. You should have a solid understanding of security and GRC landscape by then. Month 2 to 3, that's when you start studying for Security Plus. Study and pass the exam. Your goal should be Security Plus certified. Month 3 to 5 is GRC deep dive. Frameworks, ISO 27001, the NIST frameworks, SOC 2, GDPR, risk registers, policy writing, and self-study projects. The goal should be you should have a portfolio at the end of month 5. 4 to 6 is your optional certificate. If you're going to do ISO 27001 Foundation or lead implementer if budget allows, or if you're just going to cover the material without doing the exam. That's where you're going to focus. Month 5 to 7 that's where you build your CV. Again, action plus proof CV, LinkedIn optimization, portfolio site or GitHub, and you start posting, growing your network on LinkedIn and interacting with GRC professionals. And then 6 to 9 months, you targeted applications, hiring manager outreach, and interview prep. That's where you do hopefully land the job offer and get some interviews. Now, total cost, if you're smart, a Security Plus exam, it's at £350. Practice exams, maybe 15 quid. Everything else, that's free. Portfolio built with free templates, framework documents downloaded from official sites, GitHub for hosting your work, free. If you add an ISO 27001, maybe that's additional 500 to 600, but that's optional. You're looking at £370, maybe $500 to change your career. Compare that to 9,000 or thousands spent on bootcamps telling you the same thing. That's a massive difference. Now, a quick bonus round. Here's what your first GRC role actually looks like so you're not caught off guard. Week 1, you'll be reading policies, frameworks, previous audit reports, risk registers. Every company's GRC program is different. You need to understand what exists before you can improve it. Don't try change anything in week 1. Just absorb. Month 1, you'll start with smaller tasks, updating policy documents, chasing evidence from other departments, reviewing vendor security questionnaires, helping prepare for an audit. It's not glamorous, but it's foundational. Month 2, you'll start to see bigger picture. How the risk register connects to the controls, how the policies drive the compliance evidence, how everything fits together. This is when the learning from your portfolio pays off. You've already done this in simulation. Month 3, you are contributing. You're drafting actual policies. You're running vendor risk assessments independently and preparing sections of audit evidence. Your manager trusts you with more responsibility. The biggest surprise for most people is how much GRC is communication. You spend more time talking to people in other departments, explaining why something matters, how translating technical risk into business language than you'll spend reading frameworks. That's exactly why your non-technical background is an advantage. You already know how to communicate with people who aren't technical. Most security professionals struggle with this, but you won't. So, that's the complete GRC blueprint from zero knowledge to interview-ready GRC analyst in 6 to 9 months. One certification, a portfolio that proves capability, and a strategy that makes hiring managers remember your name. This is the path that nobody talks about. Technical content creators skip it because it's not flashy. Career coaches ignore it because they don't understand it. But I'm telling you, GRC is one of the fastest growing, most accessible, and best paid entry points into cybersecurity. And the fact that you're watching this right now puts you ahead of everyone else still Googling how to break into cybersecurity. Now, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment and tell me, what is your background? What career are you coming from? I want to know because I'll tell you exactly which GRC skills your experience already gives you. I read and respond to every single comment. If this was valuable, hit that like button. It helps other people in the same position find this video. And honestly, GRC content barely exists on YouTube. So every like and share pushes this to people who actually really need it. Subscribe and hit the bell button. I'm putting out weekly content on cybersecurity careers, both technical and GRC paths, without gatekeeping and without the nonsense. Plus, I'm running at least 2 weekly cybersecurity Q&A live sessions where you can interact, ask questions, and learn more. If you know someone who's been told they're not technical enough for cybersecurity, send them this video. They need to see that there's another whole side of the industry built for their skills. And if you haven't watched my SOC analyst blueprint, check out that too. Link is in the description. Between these 2 videos, you've got the complete picture of how to break into cybersecurity, no matter which direction suits you. 6 months from now, you're either reading this comment section or you're sitting in your first GRC role. The difference is whether you start today. So stop overthinking and start building. I'll see you on the next video.